The founder series is me and hopefully other founders just sharing the answers to three questions. What was difficult? What was good? And what did we learn from the previous week? And hopefully this helps somebody else. A couple good things. One is referrals from other clients. That's always good. That shows that you're doing something right. Not only have you helped a customer, a friend potentially, but also you helped them in a way that was valuable enough that they would tell somebody else about it. And referrals as a concept is probably one of the most difficult things to get right, because you can't really ask for one. You can't ask your friends to refer you or your customers to refer you to other people. They've got to do it out of the goodness of their heart. So that's been quite good. I've had a few of those come through this week, which is a great way to start a week in November, which is normally a quiet period. So we are at a interesting position with our product. We have a new technical person coming on board, and we've got a long list of things that we want to fix and improve in the product. And the difficult thing is the sunk cost fallacy. You spend so much time building this product. Do you carry on building it, or do you redo it? Because now you've realized that the architecture and the technical debt is actually going to take more effort to carry on with than to build it from scratch. And that's what we're going to tussle with the next couple of days to look at. Not to say that the current product is bad. The current product works and it does a lot of the things we want it to do. It's really that question of what's good enough versus what's right for the long term to struggle with. So I'm reading quite a lot at the moment, and reading a lot about leadership and around how to run and grow good teams. There's a couple of things there around hiring the right people and how do you empower people early on so they have ownership and creating space for them. So I'm using this week as very much a week of knowledge gain to apply in future things.
Just in addition, I just want to ask this, from what you're reading, what is the main takeaway that you're having right?
So one of the things when you're a leader, and you'll see lots of sort of these infographics where they'll say, what's the difference between a boss and what's the difference between a leader? But the thing that I personally have struggled with and I've seen is, one, you don't always have to have the answer as a leader. In fact, you shouldn't have the answers. You should trust the people around you to come up with the answers. So you come up with the problem, and you can have some instincts and experience to what you think the solution is. But you've really got to ask the people in your team, or it could be a team of teams, it could have multiple layers, whatever it is, how they're going to solve the problem, because the experts will be the people you've hired, brought in anyway. No, that's not to say that you have to take their solution for it, but you've got to have that level of discussion, and arguments are good. What I've found in different organizations that I've worked in is you can have an autocratic environment where someone always makes the decision, but then that person has to own that decision and the outcome of it. When you have a more democratic decision-making process, then the ownership around that is still owned by the leader. If it's a failure, but the success is owned by the team. And in the case of an autocratic, the success and the failure is owned by the leader either way. The key thing to this is that when you bring people along in the journey and they're part of the problem and the solution, and they're part of the decision-making, there's more buy-in and the execution is better. Now, that's not to say that everyone will always agree with what the decision is. In fact, in most cases, it's a good sign if not everyone agrees, or they agree begrudgingly. And if I think back to scenarios where I've had good experiences, that's where people have not always agreed, but they've all committed to delivering on what the consensus is, even though they don't fully agree with it. Now, where this is a fine line is you got to watch out for toxicity. The people who agree and then behind closed doors, or not even closed doors, but they start festering discontentment and every opportunity. So they've falsely agreed instead of fully agreed. But you can route that out as a leader. That's the kind of thing you should be looking for. And then it's getting out the way. Letting people get on with it, let them make mistakes, let them learn. As long as the agreement is on what the strategy is, the how is actually more up to the individuals and the smaller teams to take it on and do.
Just to add on a conversation, says you don't feel like you're alone in this. I read somewhere this week about fear of failure.
Yep.
And it's just something that I personally have a struggle with or tussle with, where I find I fear failing, so I stop trying. And then I should fear not trying instead of just fearing failure.
It's a perspective thing. I always like the acronym that failure or fail is first attempt in learning, and it's okay to fail. We grow up in a society where such value is created on being the best, but no value is created on the struggle to be the best. So you'll have a good sports. In fact, I was talking to someone this morning about a friend of theirs that has been good at sport and just basically picked up skiing like after 2 days of training and was a good skier. And I said, yeah, but that person must have had some physical ability. I said, oh, yeah, they've always been good at sport. But they also went for a training course before. Okay. So they didn't just pick up skiing in 2 days. They went for a training course before and they've watched a whole lot of YouTube videos and it's all those things. So that fear of failure. And we also, we're built in with an anxiety mechanism, which kept us alive. If you think about it, we all live in a much safer world than where we came from 10,000, however many years ago. So when you're back to those days where you didn't have shelter, you would have anxiety to find shelter. You'd have anxiety to find food. Now everything's so abundant. You can find shelter. You can find food. If worse comes to worse, you can go sleep under a bridge. Worst comes to first, you can go beg for food because there's enough food. If you go back to being a cave person, you'd have to hunt the food. And that's why people end up being, the bodies can take meat, it can take vegetables, can take fruit because you'd eat whatever you could find. You'd eat nuts. But that's fear of failure now because you don't have these other things. It's basically your brain looking for something to be scared of. And it's easy to go, oh, that's too difficult, so I won't do it. And the trick to that is to say, what do I learn if I do this thing? And turn it into, and change the perspective on it. Oh, you need to phone 10 people. Well, what am I going to learn out of phoning 10 people? The first time I phone that person, I'm not going to know what to say. So I need to learn what to say. The second person I phone, I'll get a different kind of response, which I hadn't planned for. So I'll have to learn how to respond to that. And after you phone 10 people, you'll have 10 different responses, 10 different strategies. And I always laugh when I get these sales guys that phone me and I can hear the one that's reading off the script, who's almost waiting for me to say, oh, I don't have time for this now. And they've got the predefined answer to say, if you don't have time now, let me call you next week or whatever the silly thing is. Really good ones have been through enough reps where they've said, okay, I phoned 1,000 people. I've heard every defense or block or diversion. I can handle any call now. And they do that and they do it really well. And that's what you got to look for when you're looking at the failure thing is, how do I use this as a learning activity? Because it's the same as people say, I want to have 100 leads a week, but you actually want to get 1,000 no's a week. Because 1,000 no's will lead to 100 leads, qualified leads. Because you're not going to get 9 out of 10 people are going to say no. You just need the one that says yes. And if you're looking for the only one that says yes, you become a lot more mortified when you phone 10 people and 10 people say no. When you phone 1,000 people, you will no doubt find 10 people that say yes, 100 people that say yes.
Yeah, the key takeaway, you have to do something. And also there is a good side in anxiety.
So what is anxiety? It's a fear of the future. I have anxiety because I don't know how to control. I don't know how to do what's coming up in front of me. So when I talk to people and I can hear they're bringing on anxiety, it's not, you're worrying about stuff that doesn't exist yet. So there's nothing you can do about it. You can't do anything about 5 minutes from it because you don't know what's going to happen in 5 minutes. But you can spend the next 5 minutes preparing yourself and doing stuff that you can control to be ready for 5 minutes from now. That's why if you look at people that are physically fit, they're not training, they're lifting weights and they're doing stretching and they're doing whatever they're doing, but it's for the future person. It's not for the immediate person because you don't see the results the next day. Okay, yeah, if it's your first time training, you'll be sore the next day, but you won't necessarily be sore that day. And then incremental load will continue on. And then in 6 months' time, you will see the benefits. And that's one of those things like I would call a cascading effect. When you start training, you start realizing that you can't out-train a bad diet. And that initial training that you do will have initial results, but then you will get to a plateau and you'll be like, how do I change the plateau? Now, either you change the volume, you change the regularity, or you change your diet. But there's only so much weight you can lift. There's only so much running you can do in a day. That's why they say you can't out-train a bad diet, because if you eat a muffin and a muffin is 1,000 calories or 1,500 calories, you could go and I'm training twice a day. I'm burning 500 calories a training session. So if I eat one muffin, I'm still 500 behind. So you can't out train that because you can only do so much exercise in a day.
Yeah.
Even the ultra marathon guys who do hundreds of kilometers a day, they can probably get away with it because they're literally burning ridiculous amounts of calories per day. But they're also damaging their body
Mm.
in a way that only certain people can do it. So yeah, it's just something to factor in that you're starting something that you're scared of will be painful. It will have slow progress and it will be tough, but you break it up into small things. And as long as you're measuring the small successes every time, that fear will go away. And it's like a muscle. If you let the fear become stronger, then you'll do less and less. If you beat the fear by taking on the smaller thing, over time, the fear will become less and less. I feel like I'm preaching.
But I always say breaking down preaching is like speaking from experience, I'd like to say, but that's some people, not everyone does the same way. But I think as you share some good stuff here, right?
Yeah. The whole point of this series was to share what it's like, because you can meet lots of founders, and often you meet founders that are either in the start of the journey or have met founders that are exiting. And the people that are in the middle don't necessarily want to talk about it because a lot of founders will fail. 9 out of 10 will fail. It's all about how long you can stick around for. So the longer you last, the more chance you have of success. And I think a large part of that has been decisive. And decisive doesn't necessarily mean making decisions all the time very quickly, but it's being decisive to make a decision, I think. And then realizing that a decision you make should always have a way out with another decision. And certain things will be more difficult to get out of. Now, you can make a decision just to take on a new job, for example. And for the first 6 months, depending on what country you're in, you have time under probation. And often it's seen from the point of view of the employer saying, I don't like this person, I'm going to get rid of them. But also the employee can also leave.
Mm.
I've had people that have left after one day. I've had people that have been there I've been in a job literally to the week before my probation and gone, you know what? Not the right place for me. Or another opportunity's come along and gone, actually, that's really where I want to be. And that happens.